Welcome everyone to the Board Game BBQ podcast. It is Jules here, your host for today, and I have two fantastic individuals joining me as well. We'll start with Conor. How are you doing, my friend?
Good, thanks, Jules. And hey, great to see you. Last weekend at the Melbourne Game Day. I wasn't able to jump on for your little game day cast last weekend, but it was great. Good to see you. And you know what? One of my favourite things about this podcast is people use nice adjectives to describe me on this podcast, like not bad ones, like usually happens. So yeah, it's good. I'm very good, thanks.
We try to keep it civil here.
Until the bracket, of course.
We've also got Adrian. How you doing, my friend? You're recovering well?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm very good. I'm a bit tired. It was a big day yesterday, but it was great. So we did our Brisbane Game Day the week after the Melbourne one, and I feel like I've got a raspy throat, but you guys seem to think I sound okay, so we'll just proceed as normal.
You sound perfect to me, buddy.
Thanks, mate.
No, all good. Right, well, we've got a little bit to talk about. How about we just start off with how the Brisbane Game Day went, Adrian? Give us a little rundown of what happened.
It went really well, actually. It's kind of funny because as the community kind of gets bigger and even the events get slightly bigger, when you're kind of walking around the room and stuff, you notice these little kind of moments that happen between people, which kind of not bring a tear to your heart or anything, but they definitely warm your heart. And you see other people interacting with people that there's new groups coming in, but there's people who've been to almost every game day. And you see those people helping others and teaching games just impromptu, but not even playing the game, just being like, hey, I can teach you that. That's no problem. And then they teach a group a game. And it's not organized. They don't know each other. It's just like someone's like, oh, sweet. Yeah, I know that. I can help. And away they go. So that's the best bit for me. I love that bit. I like seeing that.
Yeah, I love that as well.
Yeah. It's like organic. Forward. Yeah.
It's kind of like, yeah.
And, you're like, oh, someone taught me a game sort of off the cuff last one, and now I'm going to do the same thing, or it might have been the same game. It's like, oh, hey, yeah, that you taught me that. Or I've had a couple of people say, oh, yeah, I heard you taught this at a game day, or you taught me this at another game day. So, they're great. Like, they're so much fun. And, we quite often say that we're tired after them, but it's like a good tired. It's kind of the same tired that I used to get when I'd play like a really good game of footy. Like, you're like, oh, that was definitely worth it, and you get that good buzz. And yeah, so yes, it's tiring, but it's all worth it. And I'm not saying that to be cliched or to sort of to butter people up, but it is. It's great seeing our community and meeting people in person, and even people were giving me a bit of a rev up for finally going to a Victorian-based game day instead of avoiding everyone.
We can confirm Connor is a real person and he exists.
And another thing that happened actually at the game day is we had a state championship for the Catan.
Yes, that's right.
Game. And it was really interesting because I would never want to play a game competitively because I'm just not... I don't know. Well, I'm not smart enough for one, and for two, I'm just not that fussed. I'm not that kind of person. Like, I don't mind. I don't care enough to be like, I have to win this, and there's all this stuff riding on it. But for other people, there is that, and that's great. Like, that's so cool to see, and I actually really admire that because I'm like, man, that's such a commitment to be that dedicated in the moment, to be like, I have to make these really super efficient moves to make every move count to win this thing. And it was really interesting because we saw, I think there was 3 or 4 tables that started out playing, and then the winners of all those tables went to a grand final, which was on a big table in the middle with like a 3D special edition version of Catan set out. And it did look very impressive. And there were some pictures on the Facebook group, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. But there was there was 2 of the games there was one game that definitely finished quicker than the others, but there was 2 games where it was like, when you watch the online poker, not the online poker, the poker chat world championships, and everyone's quiet and sussing each other out. And so it was just like that. It was like intense. Like, you could walk around the room and everyone's buzzing and crazy. Then you'd walk over to this bit and it was just like, Like you could hear like tumbleweeds, like and everything. It was insane. But the person that won was a person called Josh Wright. He won, and I found out that he'd ridden 6 hours to come to this one event to play Catan, and he mainly just plays Catan.
Oh wow!
And he plays a few things like in a competitive online community. So they have like a league that I think you might chip a little bit of money into, and then everybody plays, and you go in through different stages and stuff. But yeah, I didn't realize it was such a big thing still, but it was really interesting to find out. And yeah, he won, and he gets the flights and all that stuff to go to the nationals
in Canberra.
Yeah, and then hopefully he'll go all the way and do Brisbane proud or Queensland proud, and go to the international, which would be insane. But yeah,
that's playing competitively in terms of like actual prizes and money and stuff for board games is something that I know it's been around, but it's not a scene that's in my at least from what I can see, it's not a scene that's grown massively. Obviously, we've got games that are sort of adjacent to the hobby in Magic the Gathering and Warhammer that have huge tournaments.
Yeah.
But I know that there are tournaments, I think it's in Vegas, that have recently started with some big prize money for a number of games, which I think, really, that's a tournament, category of sort of game where they're a bit more luck-based or a bit more deduction. But anyway, it's really interesting to see.
I don't know enough about Catan to make a solid like evaluation, but there's a lot of bargaining with each other, right?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah,
that's why I was.
You have to bargain with each other, and it's like, I don't want to give you that thing, because if I give you that thing, then like I'm helping you potentially more than I'm helping myself. And it was just really interesting. And at one point I heard someone go, I'll swap one clay for one clay or something. And I was like, what does that even mean? You just like, what does that mean? I'll swap one sheep or whatever it is. I'll swap a sheep for a sheep. And I'm like, but that's the same. You just keep your sheep, man. Like, I don't know if you have to trade in the game or what, but it was really funny, like for being someone from the outside, having no idea what's going on. It was quite funny to sit back and watch and just see everyone.
That is funny.
Hey, they all really enjoyed it, and it was really cool at the end, because when everybody finished, they and lots of other people, even though they were out of the tournament, they actually sat and waited and they watched the grand final.
Oh wow!
And it was really cool to see everybody. At the end, there was lots of like handshaking and embracing each other, and like lots of high fives and yelling. It was really cool at the end. I have to admit, it was really.
It sounds like it was all played in pretty good spirits then.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, I mean, there was no like crazy antics or anything, but it was good.
It is interesting. Like we haven't played Catan that much lately, but sometimes with my brother and his mates who are a little bit younger than me, we'll play Catan, and there's a few shenanigans that goes on, like where you'll say, oh yeah, I'll trade you wood for something, and you'll just give them like not wood. And for us in our games, that's binding. That's like, well, you shouldn't have traded with me if you didn't know that I had it. And I mean, I don't know if that's a legit rule or whatever. Like, but,
no, it's not.
Well, that's So, but for us, like, that's just adds to the funniness of it. And once again, we're not playing for a trip to Canberra to represent the state. But yeah, it was really interesting. Like when you mentioned it, and then it was going to run. First of all, I thought that's awesome that's being organised, and secondly, kind of like what Jules said, is it's an interesting game to play. I'd imagine to play competitively. Even stuff like the robber and how the robber works, and you would definitely play. Okay, well, where am I going to put the robber on? Because that might determine if they put it on me next, or But maybe I don't want that specific. Even though it's valuable, I might not want that specific number to not come up, because I do need that resource and I need to trade with that person. So, yeah, it's actually, there would be a fair bit of strategy involved. But like I said, when we play it, it's just chaos, absolute chaos.
There's definitely a lot of strategy and a lot of statistics involved with the numbers and the placements and how they get randomly distributed with the resources. So there's absolutely enough in Catan to warrant. I mean, it's a competitive game in itself, so it doesn't surprise me it being the big game that it is that has tournament scenes. But yeah, like you said, there's luck in the dice rolling. There's a lot of people politics at the table to deal with as well, which makes it interesting.
if we look at Catan now, right? That game's how old's that game? Like 30 years old. It's old,
yeah.
right?
It's getting to it, yeah.
I think there might be a 30th anniversary edition or something. But there was a big 3D version. I'm not sure what edition that actually is, but that's some sort of special edition for some sort of anniversary. But I wonder if we look at the games now of the past few years, what games that are here now do we think potentially would be that kind of a thing in years to come? Some sort of a competition or something like that. Do you think there'd be like a Gaia Project National in 20 years' time?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
something that's here to stay, you know?
Yeah, something that's somewhat deterministic. Maybe like a game like Scythe too. Because you've got a few different things going on. There's a few different strategies, and there's a legit in-game scoring and things like that. So,
but do you think the asymmetry in the starting players would make that be a null?
True.
Do you know what I mean? Because then it's always like, is there a bit of an imbalance? Do you think that because I'm not sure about Catan because I don't play it, but I'm guessing everyone starts the same. You're not an asymmetrical faction, right? You're just playing.
You start with certain access to resources.
Yeah.
And when you roll the die, you get those. So there actually is a fair bit. But everyone has the opportunity, and then because you go backwards in the snake draft, even though you've placed last, you get to place your second one first, meaning that you get access to the first of the next best locations. So it kind of evens out, if you're playing smartly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know if there's other games out there that are good for a tournament scene. I think the ones in my mind that lean more towards having less luck and being more deterministic, but also accessible enough and it has a big reach. You need a large group to support a tournament scene. So when you mention Gaia Project, I go, wow, yeah, that's a perfect game, but it's not very accessible. It's definitely a complex game. So I don't know.
Well,
I'd love to hear from the community about what they think. What games do you think would be perfect for a tournament scene?
Or if you've heard of other games that are played competitively, like I would try to get in touch with the professional crokinole.
They snubbed me. But there's I tell you, there's a pandemic like world championship as well. Like
oh really?
There's a world championship for Pandemic, and they host it, and I've seen pictures of them people playing it competitively for a prize. And I don't know how that would work.
Do you play as a team?
I believe so, because they're wearing the same shirts opposite each other.
That's actually kind of cool, man.
I think you have to eradicate it in a certain
number of turns. Oh,
something like that.
That would be so good. That's so clever.
I'll look it up and I'll get back to everybody. But it definitely, I saw it and I was like, wow, competitive Pandemic? Like that's different, but
very interesting.
There you go.
Well, I wanted to talk a bit about crowdfunding, and I haven't really backed a lot this year. I had a look at my phone, just checking GameFound and Kickstarter. I've only backed 2 games this year, and I was really surprised by that. I thought it might have been a couple more. Actually, one of those being it's an expansion, which is all the new Unsettled stuff, and the other one was Nightmare Cathedral on GameFound, and that's it. But there's a few things at the moment that have me weak, and there's definitely some other things coming down the pipeline this year that will be a great temptation. But at the moment, at the time, if you're listening to this, the day this podcast is coming out, Ra is finishing up on GameFound, and that is obviously a reprint of the classic Reiner Knizia game, and it looks amazing. The deluxe version with all the wooden tiles instead of cardboard look incredible, and of course, Ian O'Toole can do no wrong. He's done all the artwork for that game. It looks amazing. So I'm in on that one. I'm very compelled by the game and just the simplicity, yet the tough decisions that auction game brings. Are you guys interested at all or in on Ra?
I'm not interested per se, but I think this is what GameFound and Kickstarter are perfect for, because you know that there's going to be a market for these things, right? Especially something like Ra, which hasn't had a new edition for umpteen years. and you can see people are, it might be out of stock, or, there might be some rules, or there could have been community rules that are put in place that are widely accepted. And now they can have this, and they've got the monetary backing. They can hire someone like Ian O'Toole to do the graphic design. It's obviously a fantastic game with Rainer Knizia behind it, and it is well loved. But now the hobby has grown so much, so there's a whole host of people that be like, I'd love a copy of Ra. I'd even love a copy of Ra that's much prettier, much more accessible than the old one. So I think that's a really, really good, good thing to be coming out. What I'm excited for, and I believe you're excited for, Jules, is the upcoming Leader Games Kickstarter, and that is ARCS.
Oh yeah.
So not ARCS, how people say ask in Warrnambool. ARCS is in ARCS. So yeah,
they still spell it like that though. Warrnambool for ask.
Yeah, they still spell ask normally. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But so it's looking really good. Like, especially I was sort of when I say I was let down by Oath, it just wasn't the game that I thought it was going to be. Like, that's fair enough, but it ended up being a great game for people who really enjoy that stuff. But ARCS is like in space, so already I'm like, yes, it's still got the Cole Ferrin art, which is fantastic, and Cole has put heaps of work behind it. And I know, like I said, I know you're excited about it, Jules.
So excited. I think all those things you mentioned excite me, but also the way that they're pitching the whole game. So it was designed as a big narrative game, and it's designed to have a consistent group involved in it, but they're going to be selling and packaging that game as you can buy a core box that you can do one-shots, essentially. It's not a full big campaign, and another box that will have all the large campaign content in a separate one. And I really appreciate that they're taking that approach. Look, don't get me wrong, I think I'm going to be all in on both boxes because I absolutely loved Oath. I don't get to play it enough, but I have thoroughly enjoyed that. And this has an evolution element from Oath. So that's why I'm interested in the full campaign element. But you can just buy the core game box on its own without needing that, not the legacy, the campaign element where you go over multiple sessions. That's what I think is really compelling and interesting, that it's been designed to accommodate both styles of play.
Look, I haven't bought a Leader game ever. I liked Root. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. Like, I'm not bagging it out. I think it's a great game, but it's like all these types of games. You have to play it lots and lots of times, and I'm not a big area control-y person, so it's just not going to really happen. So when I read the campaign, it all sounds great with the design and everything, but the whole 3 to 4 player thing always scares me a little bit since I played Coffee Traders. So Coffee Traders was great. I enjoyed it 2-player, but when I played it 5-player, I never wanted to play it 2-player ever again, and I won't. It's a good 5-player game, but when you start to have to use the automa, which is quite easy to use, but it's not nearly as fun as that. So what have they implemented in to make it even? Is it playable with 2? Do you share a character? Is there something like that?
So I don't think you can play ARCS as a 1 or 2 player game. I think it really has been designed to be 3 and 4. I could be wrong, but from the designer diaries that I've read, it's my understanding that it really is a campaign game for 3 to 4 people. And I totally get that being a barrier. It often is. It has happened with other games that are a barrier to me with the player count, but I don't know. I just like the look of it and everything that it promises, so I don't care.
Yeah, no, I think, and look, things like all campaign games suffer from that, right? Like, you need to have a constant group.
Yeah.
I know with Oath, they had sort of said, well, you don't actually need a constant group.
Yeah.
Which is 100% true. You don't. But the thing is, I think the story that it tells, it's better if you're there either from the beginning.
Oh, absolutely.
Or if you're there, if you're seeing it being developed. Yeah. And I know when me and Def played it, along with Harry and JB. Like, we wanted to develop this world and come up with these stories, which I think that's what they've delved into with Arcs, according to the developer diaries.
That's the thing with those types of games, though. Like, if you played it just the once, you wouldn't get the immersion and experience. And if you came in halfway, you'd lose half the story and even just the key moments that made the game sort of special for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do wonder, is there any way I don't have to read up on it myself, but I would like to see if you can play it three-handed solo type thing, or it's just not possible. Do you know what I mean? Like, surely,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know if there's hidden information between each characters, even though you might be cooperative. You might not be able to give everyone all the information.
It's competitive.
Oh, it's competitive. I thought it was co-op, but yeah, that shows what I know. But anyway, like, if it's competitive, then so there's no, you have to play it. You would have to play it 3-player minimum. There's no way around it.
Because there's combat involved and the asymmetry starts to grow as you go through the game. But I think
do you think that'll hinder the campaign? Because the campaigns always do well. The leader games do great.
They always do fantastic.
But do you think people will look at it and go, "Oh man, 3 players"? Like, oh, I'm not sure.
I think it'll be okay, particularly as well because the campaign experience that they're offering is you can play a campaign in 3 sessions. It's not one that takes 20 plays or a Gloomhaven that's 100 plays to go through a campaign. It's 3 plays, and then you can do another one, which is just a very different take, which I find interesting.
Yeah, it's like multiple campaigns in the box. But using the same, I guess, basic game, if that makes sense. I think with, again, comparing it to Oath, because it was their campaign, the previous campaign game. But that was really, I think you saw the fruits of your labour a lot longer down the track, and you saw how the balancing between the different groups of peoples and things like that. So I think whereas Arcs, I think because it's you could play it in 3 sittings effectively, that's cool for like a long weekend. Sit down, okay, this is the game I'm going to play over the long weekend. Right, done, let's do it. Or, I catch up with you for a weekend, Adrian, and we bust it out and we play it over a weekend, or, something like that. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could maybe bust it out and play it in one giant sitting throughout a day.
Is the 3 campaigns thing, that's just like a basic campaign, essentially? You could do more, or there is more, or it's always just the 3?
I'm not 100% sure, but I know it's going to be a lot tighter than your typical campaign games. It's not meant to be a 50-game campaign thing. They're shorter sessions. But we'll find out more this week. It launches just in a few days' time, which is very exciting.
The cool part about leader games is that, like, they don't do stretch goals. You know exactly what you're getting from the beginning. They've run
all go to retail.
Multiple successful.
I do like campaigns. What Cole sort of said that kind of resonated quite well was he said, "We don't make games for everyone, but we make someone's favorite game." Like, he obviously focuses really hard, and he's got a very interesting design method and the way he designs games. Even though personally they're not games for me, I see so much love and enjoyment through a multitude of different people that love these games, Root, PAX, all these other games. And it's really lovely to see, because it's like, wow, someone's really passionate about playing this game, which is fantastic. But I don't know. Now that I know it's 3 to 5 or 3 to 4, and I don't know, I don't think I'll get it. I have to wait for a leader game for me. There'll be one. He says he makes one person's favorite game, so I'm sure he'll make something for me.
You're at the top of his list.
It'll be the Moana game that you like.
Oh man, if he made a Moana game, I'd be onto it. I'd be like all over that. I'd be into it. So.
Oh man. So has there been anything else on your guys' radar in terms of crowdfunding?
Yeah, I backed something just the other day. It was one of those, like, I woke up at 4:00 in the morning, was like, a little bit early for work. I just gave a quick look on Kickstarter, see what there was. And I came across a game, and within like 5 minutes of reading the campaign, I backed it. I was like,
oh, wow, okay.
And it's called Union Stockyards.
Wow,
And
that
it
does
really
sound like an
just-
Adrian thing.
You train junkies. Chef's converted you.
It's not that. It's kind of, you know what? It's really reminiscent of City of the Big Shoulders in a way. It's all to do with stocks and shares, but it's all to do with meat prices. And it's based on a real, the Union Stockyards is a real thing in Chicago. It was the largest meat industry in America and one of the largest meat industries in the world. And yeah, it supplies 80% of all US meat. There you go.
Oh, wow.
And it just really interested me straight away. And they have it has a lot of bad history, and it has a lot of interesting history. So, it was something that they are, I don't know how they're honest with the theme, I suppose would be the word. Like, there's probably a lot of like exploitative things in it and different things in it that some people just don't really want to know about or think about. There's probably quite a bad time, but it just interested me as a part of history that I don't really know anything about. But I was like, wow, there's a meat factory that employed 40,000 people and did all this stuff. Like, it just interested me. So I was like, I'm going to get it. Why not? It's a game, so let's give it a go. And City of the Big Shoulders is a really hard game to get hold of, and this looks like a similar type thing. It's a worker placement game where you're developing your company and you pick a real person that was really working there and owned some sort of a business. And yeah, it looked really cool. It's very beige like, but Sarah says beige is the new black, so I'm down for that.
She would.
Yeah, that's right. But like, it's got a really interesting, because the actual facility itself was huge, as you can quite imagine. So a part of the actual game board is building different sheds and different buildings on the actual board to represent your company, I suppose, and develop your company through the game, because there's different houses and different like I say, different stations, different working environments that you build out on the board. But yeah, it just looked really cool. It just looks something interesting. It's got stocks in it, which I'm kind of getting a bit of a fan of at the moment, to be honest. I quite enjoy stuff with the stocks in. I like Mini Express. I've enjoyed the 218XX games. I like City of Big Shoulders. They just interested me, and it was a game that I had no idea it was around, never seen a single piece of information about, never seen a Kickstarter ad, nothing. And I was like, this looks really cool. I watched a little bit of the history about it and was like, yeah, I'm going to back it. Why not? It's not ridiculously expensive either. So yeah.
Cool stuff.
And I think it's Andrew Bosley did the artwork and stuff for it as well.
What?
Okay, cool.
That man, he's just frenetic.
Yeah, so.
Have you been backing anything,
factory
Connor?
game? Why not? Like, give it a go.
No, I actually have. I was like, I haven't backed anything this year, but I've actually backed a few different things. I backed the Wreck, the latest one. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Recklin Run. That's it. So Recklin Run. So I backed that. I've got Motor City Games coming too.
Oh yes.
So I'm really excited about that, as is pretty much all of the podcast. And then the other one I backed, it was a bit of a flyer. I looked at it, and kind of like Root, it's got anthropomorphic animals. It's set in like feudal Japan. It's called Ryozen.
Oh, yes.
And it's kind of like this worker placement where you effectively, you're taking control and it's kind of the theme similar to Bitoku, Adrian, where you're vying to be the next great power and you're moving up the Ryozen Tower, but you sort of play in these spaces around the board, and then one of the spaces and one of the key parts of the game is the tower itself and your placements inside the tower. So this was kind of like, you know how you get an itchy trigger finger and you go, I haven't backed anything for a while. It was there. Yeah. I was like, let's just do it. Bang, I'll back it.
So if I'm remembering,
and of course,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying, and of course, I've got a couple of things to deliver. I had Carnegie deliver a couple of weeks ago. Ooh. And then we're both waiting on, I think you and me are both waiting on something we'll talk about later, Jules, to come. And I think the burn cycle is coming soon. I think most people get their notifications for that. So that's pretty exciting. Burn cycle chip
There's
theory
a-
games. That'd be good.
There's a lot of good stuff dropping soon, but I was going to say that Ryzen game, if I'm remembering correctly, it's Tabular Games that are the publisher, and
Correct.
they are the ones that did Mysthea.
Ah,
Oh, wow, okay.
So I love Mysthea and Ikeon, which is the follow-up to that one, and they haven't had much since then until Ryzen, or however you pronounce it, but I looked at that one for
Your
a
guess
while.
is as good as mine.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'll have to see a bit more information when it starts hitting backers' doorsteps. I guess speaking of doorsteps, so I got the opportunity this past week to play a fresh copy of the Root Marauder expansion. And got to play as the Keepers in Iron, which is one of the new factions. Yeah, so I got to play a 4-player game with a few people from the community. Joe being one of them, who got to do the Lord of the Hundreds, and it was a fantastic game, very tight game. Both Joe and I were struggling because new factions and learning how they function. But it was very fun. I definitely want to play it a few more times and try out the Hirelings box, which is a new sort of mechanic and element brought into the Root universe to help with those lower player counts. Before I sizzle this game, I'd love to have a few more goes at it, but I can absolutely say that I thoroughly enjoyed playing as the Keepers in Iron. Such a unique puzzle and very, very tricky to pull off. Probably the most complex faction in the game to date, I would say. It's right up there.
Right.
Yeah, very, very tricky to pull off, but very satisfying puzzle to try and figure out.
I know you said that you didn't want to sizzle it at the moment, but can you give us maybe a little bit of insight into them and how they play?
So basically, the story of the Keepers in Iron is that they've come out of exile and they're coming into the forest to dig up treasures and relics. And that is the main way which they score points, is there's tokens that get put in the forest clearings in between, or get put in the forest between the clearings, and you're trying to control the clearings, enough clearings around forest sections to delve and pull out these relics from those areas. And then to bring those relics, which are the circle cardboard tokens, to way stations, which are your buildings that match the same symbols. So they have 3 different types of relic tokens, which you're trying to pull out of the forest and bring them to way stations. And you only have 3 different way stations you can build. And you can have more than one symbol at a time showing, like meaning you could have 2 of one symbol and 1 of another and 0 of the other. So they're double-sided. So it means you don't have to have 1 of each symbol out on the board at any time, which is quite interesting. But they're quite a slow faction, so they're hard to move around, and you have the ability to sort of set up camp. So you set up your way stations, and then the ability to decamp. So you actually pull it off the board and can move and set it up somewhere else. So you're sort of traveling. You get this element, this feeling like you're traveling through the map rather than just have a base and sort of spread out from there, which is a very different feel. But then they also have the main sort of actions that you're taking is very much like the birds, the Eerie, in that you have a retinue and you have cards that you slot into 3 actions, and you can max out at 10 cards in your retinue. But those are the cards that give you the options of how you take those actions. So you don't have to execute them like the birds. It just means these are the options. So you can delve at a fox clearing. You can recover a relic at a bunny clearing. So there's a puzzle that you're trying to deal with there at the same time. I think one of the cool things that I enjoyed about them is they have a great ability to get out guys fast. They spend cards to put 2 warriors on the board at a matching way station in a particular clearing. So if I spend a bunny card, I'll get 2 warriors at every bunny clearing that has a way station. But at the end in the night sort of phase, any clearing that has more than 4 warriors for the keepers and iron, the excess disappear. So you can't just build up this ball of units really quickly. You're maxed out at 4 at the end of your turn. And probably the most fun thing is that when you pull these relics in from the forest, is when you have a warrior with it, it acts as like a shield, and you ignore the first hit in every battle while you've got a relic with a warrior.
Nice.
So you can pull these things
cool.
out and and you travel with them. You actually pull them across the board, and you help you sort of. I guess the theme is you get very, you're very devout to protecting these relics, and so you fight harder. I don't know. But yeah, very, very unique puzzle, but very hard to line things up. And you got a lot of limitations happening on a few different fronts with trying to make that all the systems work together. So that's the basic overview without explaining every rule. But very, very fun.
Does any of these expansions require a different map? Or they all use the same original map?
Yep. So, there are 4 maps en route. I didn't know if you knew that, Adrian.
Yeah, but do they just visually look different, or are they actually mechanically different?
No, they've got different parts in it. So there's like even the flip side of the old flip side, like the winter map has different access to different clearings and things like that. So, and that by playing on them, that changes, I guess, potentially the strength of the different factions.
Yes.
And then there's the
lake map.
See, I know those bits exist, but I mean, there's no extra mechanics on the map.
No,
they're
there
just
is
different spots. That's what I'm getting at.
No,
there is extra mechanics. What are they then?
So for the autumn and winter map, there's no mechanical differences. It's just different connections. For the lake, it has a raft which can travel between any of the coastal clearings that has connection to water. And then the mountain map has like a tower that goes in the central clearing that whoever controls that gains an extra victory point at the end of their turn. So there's a bit of a king of the hill element for that map, which is really fun.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've only ever played the winter and the autumn. That's it.
Those
I haven't even seen the other ones, but these new factions that have just come out, they can just go on the base factions. They can just go on the base maps, basically.
Yep, absolutely.
Cool.
So when I played it, we played on the winter map, and that is a very challenging map. It's so tight and so hard to maneuver around the way it's designed in terms of its connection points. Lots of choke points. But man, it was such good fun. Very, very close game in the end. Anyway, we've talked about that a lot, and it's not even my sizzle. Does someone else, one of you guys, want to go ahead and talk about something you've been playing recently?
Hey guys, it's Mike here. I'm here to talk to you about Advent Games. Have you bought a game from Advent yet? If you haven't, you definitely should. Dean and his team are absolutely amazing. They've got an amazing website, really heavily curated with all sort of different categories from deck building and rare games, and look, just go check it out. They offer $10 flat rate shipping all around Australia. They also directly support the podcast Game Days up in Sydney, so you can go by and say hello. Guys, go check out Advent. You won't regret it.
So I went to like I said before, I went to the Melbourne Game Day, and I actually didn't play many games until later in the afternoon, but I played this great little game called Halapagus, which was a Chris Ingold. He sold it to me. He goes, "You got time for a 20-minute game?" I was like, "Sure, whatever. I'll play a 20-minute game, no dramas." And the setting is that you are on a desert island, so you've all crashed. It's you and I think up to like 12 different people potentially can play this game. And effectively, you can take one of 3 actions. You can either gather wood, you can gather water, or you can gather food. And the way that you gather wood is you move along a path, and you move along the path and you know, when you move along the path, you're building a raft. So you move along the path, and each time you move along the path, you've gathered one wood, but you can delve into the forest and grab more wood. However, you need to claim how much extra wood you're going to get, and that means that you're going to stick your hand into this burlap sack and draw out these spheres. And I think 4 or 5 of the spheres are like wood-coloured, and one of them is black-coloured. And if you just draw out the wood-coloured spheres, you collect that much extra wood, which is great because you want to build rafts to get off the island. But if you grab the black sphere, that means you've been bitten by a snake.
Ooh.
You are poisoned, which means you get no actions the next turn, and you don't get to vote if there's going to be a vote.
Oh.
Food, you go fishing, so you stick your hand in the sack again and you draw out one sphere, and that's got the number of fish. And in this case, the black sphere is good because it's got 3 fish on there. And then collecting water is based on whether it's rained or whatever during the game. But so you're all working cooperatively until you're not, because when you're not, you have to decide if there's not enough food or water to go around who you're going to kill. But what you can also do is while people are voting or once they've voted, you also have these cards that can be played at any time. So sometimes you might have like a bottle of water, and so you can drink that bottle of water and you'll save yourself. So you don't have to worry about, you know, the water. You save yourself, or you can give it to the group. Sometimes one of them is you can get a gun. So if someone's voted for you, you can shoot them. But you've also got to have the bullet. And one of the ways that you get these items is by going through the junk and the wreckage that's also landed on your desert island. And it was really, really fun. So Chris set up, and I was playing with a few of the other guys. Too many to mention, but anyway, like I hadn't met most of these guys before, and we had an absolute hoot. It was so funny because we're like, oh, we're smashing this. This is fine. And then you know what started getting real, and it was like, okay, who are we going to kill? And then it became so vicious, and like at one point I was like, it's going to be me, isn't it? Like, because I had voted for someone else, and then they had survived. I can't remember why they survived, and it's like, yeah, it's going to be you. And it was really, really good. It was just a great when Chris explained, he's like, there's player elimination, but no one really got eliminated until the last maybe 2 or 3 rounds.
Okay.
And even then, because it was so quick, it was just funny. So, yeah, it went 20 minutes. I had never heard of it before.
No, I haven't
so
either.
Galapagos is its name. And, yeah, that was really fun. And it's a typical, convention / game day game where you're just going to grab a whole heap of people, kind of like, Mafia de Cuba and things like that, because it's just silliness and you don't really care if you've been eliminated, and you can plead your case, you can act like an idiot and carry on, and, everyone has a bit of fun. So, yeah, and the other game I played just briefly was Skull King, which is one of Mitch's favourite trick-taking games. And for me, that's a bit more like a traditional trick-taking game because you're betting how many tricks you're going to win.
Yeah.
And for me, that's part of the fun is to say, yeah, I'm going to win this many. And then, trying to, if you've lost, then you can tank other people's and all that type of stuff. Like, I think that's really, really fun. But
have you played Niet yet, Connor?
Oh yeah. I love my play of Niet. That was awesome. That was one of the epic moments of the retreat.
I remember.
Me and Mitch came from behind, and it's great. So, and while I was playing it, I just said to all the other guys, "Hey, have you played Niet? Have you played Niet?" They're like, "Yeah, we played Niet. We played it with Mike." I was like, "Of course you played it." Because
it's the best. I think it's the best. Honestly, I think it's my favorite. I just love it. So
yeah. But like I said, this is more like there's no. It's that thing of, there's the highest card, but the highest card can be beaten by one particular card. And we actually, the version we played was a Rick and Morty version that the group had come up with themselves.
Oh, right.
And they'd used the Rick and Morty characters. Yeah. It was a bit like, I was like, oh, this clearly isn't like like an official game, and it wasn't. They just used the art, and they made their own version of Skull King. So, yeah, really, really good couple of games to play towards the end of the night. and they were just fun games to play during that time.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to play a few of those kind of games at the game day because I was quite busy and I didn't really play many large games. But towards the end of the evening, I got to play some of the Mafia de Cuba and things like that, which was quite fun. In fact, someone took the role playing of that game to the next level and took the henchman chip home with them and was a henchman, is now henchman for life. So Anna took the henchman chip and she found it in her pocket and messaged us on Facebook and was like, I've got a henchman chip from the Mafia de Cuba game I was in. Sorry about that. So that's kind of funny.
If you didn't listen to Mike explaining it last week, then you actually have to put things in your pocket.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah. Easy to miss.
That's why that happens.
Kind of like a hidden role game but then when it's one of those things where at the end, like everyone's yelling at each other because you find out who was doing what, and then you just forget that you've got it in your pocket. Like I would do that easily. No problem.
Forget a few diamonds.
I have to. Yeah, for sure. So I have to say that the game that really stood out for me through the day was I've got to play So Clover, and I really liked it. I enjoyed it, and I when I played it and we went through the rules. I was like, "There's no way that you're going to guess these. Like that would be so difficult. It would be." Do you know what I mean? Like how it works, how it mechanically works. I'm like, my one clue and all these other words that are involved in this game, I don't see how you're going to get it. But man, we got quite a lot of sixes. I was surprised. It's a really, really clever word game. I think I prefer Decrypto as a word game, but Decrypto is just such a long slog. Do you know what I mean? It's longer. Whereas this, you could pick this up, play one round, and you're done. Like you could do it in 15, 20 minutes. But it's very good. It's really, really, really fun. And Dan's spoken about it. I think someone else has spoken about the podcast. But essentially, you have like a 4-leaf clover, and on each section of those clovers, you get to write a one-word clue to the 2 words that are associated to that part of the clover. And those little pieces that go onto the clover have 4 words on them written around the side of a square. So that square on the clover could essentially, when you randomize it, it could be rotated in any direction. So your one-word clue might go with another square's clue on a different side, and you look at it and it looks quite complicated. When you start it takes 2 seconds and it's really quite easy. But yeah, some of the clues were great. Like I had sister and essence on one of my sides.
Okay,
so I wrote whoopee for Whoopi Goldberg, and like if you fart, they call it a whoopee sometimes, and essence. I was like, I'm going with that, and they got it. I was amazed. I was like, how did someone get that?
Sometimes with those games, you just end up being on the same wavelength as people. Like, it's really, really funny.
I had like almost like stand-up moment with Skinny from Discord, because I can't remember what happened, but it was my clues were cantina and accessory, right? Mm-hmm. So I put lightsaber because
I knew you were going to say that. When you said cantina, I was like, I know where this is going.
So I put lightsaber because I was like, look, you wear it on your hip. It's an accessory to a degree, like not a fashion accessory, but it is an accessory. And in a cantina scene is kind of, he cut the dude's hand off in the cantina. It's kind of a famous old Star Wars scene. But one of the other clues was blood. And then someone went, oh, lightsaber, blood. And then Skinny goes, yeah, but if it was a lightsaber, you cauterize the wound, there'd be no blood. I was like, my man.
Yeah.
I love this guy. He knew straight away. And I was like so impressed with it. But yeah, it was such a hoot. Like, it was definitely the best game I played. Like, just because it was a word game which just had lots of thinking in it. It really did have a good amount of thought to it, but it was just fun and it wasn't too serious. And it's a cooperative game. You're trying to give good clues and you're trying to get a good score. And I like those. Just like Just One has proven that a cooperative word game can be fun. So yeah, really well done. So We bought a copy, so it's good.
Nice.
Have you played Letter Jam yet?
No,
Adrian?
that was the other one because Dan was
Oh.
teaching it as I started to play
Yeah.
Carnegie, and I was like, I'd like to try that
is
as well.
So
but-
good.
yeah.
Oh, it is so, like, already my family is like, make sure when you visit again, you bring Letter Jam. I'm like, yes, I know. So I think I just need to get a copy and leave it there.
Sounds like it.
But I mean, that's my favorite word game.
Mm.
I really like Just One. I thought Just One was really, really sick. But I think Letter Jam's just got that bit extra. It's got that bit extra chewiness to it, where it is more of a. It's more of a. This is going to sound a bit patronising or a bit snobbery, but it is, to me, it's more of a game than like a party activity that Just One is.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like Just One's effectively, all right, everyone, and you don't have to keep track in Just One. Like, whereas with Letter Jam, it's like no, the game. You want to get to the end so you can find out what your word is.
Yeah.
As opposed to Just One where it's like, okay, everyone write down their word and make sure you don't have the same as someone else.
Yeah, the best thing about Just One is, like I said it before, Finn can play it. Like, young kids can play that really easily, and that's like a great thing for that. But if you want a bit more crunch and stuff, those games like So Clover and Letter Jam are definitely the way to go. So
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, on the subject of light fun games, the one that I wanted to sizzle today, I got to play a little while ago. And it's by Facade Games, which are the ones that do Bristol 1350, those book-looking games. And this one's Tortuga 1667. So one of the things with Facade Games is all of their games go to up to 9 players. So this is the same in this case. And it's probably a bit more than a party game because it probably takes 45 minutes or so to play. And I had an absolute blast doing it. So this is a hidden role team game. So you, depending on the player count, you might have a different combinations of people. So if you've got an even number of people, you'll have the British and the French. And those, as to what team you're on, is hidden. And if there's an odd number of people, you also have Dutch. And I'll come back to them. But what you're trying to do is there's 2 ships on this neoprene mat. So that's another feature of their games. They do neoprene mats, which are nice. And
not hankies?
No, not hankies. Not hankies. Neoprene. But I won't disparage the hanky. They can be very useful.
I know you love the hanky such detail.
So basically what happens is there's 2 ships and you're fighting over these treasure chests. And on the ships, there are 2 sides where the treasure chests can be. And on the ships themselves, there's also positions for everyone's pawns to be in. And depending where you are on the ship, you have a different role. So if you're up the top of the ship, you are the captain. And then the one behind that is the first mate. And then behind that are crew people. And if you're the last person in the line on the ship, you're like the cabin boy, I think it is. And you have access to different actions depending on where you are, as well as a few basic ones that everyone can take. So on your turn, you have basically what will happen is there's a few things you can do. As the captain, you can just boot someone off your ship and they get kicked out to Tortuga, which is an island in the middle of the playmat. If you're the crew, the second in command, the first mate, you can call for a mutiny of the captain. So in your hand, you have a bunch of cards, and there's sort of 3 different uses on those cards, depending on what's been called. So if there's a mutiny, there's a section on there that has sort of the wheel of the ship and a skull and crossbones, and the wheel means keep the captain there. The skull and crossbones means maroon them on Tortuga. So everyone throws in a card face down, and you add a random from the deck, and you see what happens. When a player leaves the ship, everyone else shuffles up a position, so you get a new roll depending on where your position is. If you're the captain, you can choose to do an attack, and there's a Spanish galleon that has a lot of the treasure chests on it. And again, with those cards, you're looking to find a combination of a torch and a cannon, and not have any water buckets that will put out the torch and cancel it. So you have to have enough of those to have a successful attack. Again, everyone puts in that's involved on that ship, and you see what the outcome is. And if you're successful, the captain will bring over that treasure, and you got to pick which side of the ship you're putting the treasure on. So as I mentioned before, there's two sides where the treasure goes. There's a British side and a French side. So you're trying to not be too obvious about which side you're on, but at the end of the game, your team needs to have the most treasure accumulated on both ships and the island of Tortuga. So the cool thing is that when you get kicked out to Tortuga, if you're the first person there, you become the governor of Tortuga, and you have the action to call for a brawl on Tortuga, which is the third action that is available on your hand of cards. And whoever, if it's the majority British symbols that show up, then all of the treasure on Tortuga moves to the British side. Likewise, if it's the French, it all moves to the French side. And so you're going back and forth, and there's a deck of event cards that you're burning through to try and mess people up, kick them out of the ship, change things around, and all to get to the end of the game where there's a final card that is, when it's revealed, it ends the game. And there's so much table talk in this of accusations going back and forth about who's French, who's British. There's even event cards that we saw that swap people's cards so you can move allegiances, which absolutely throws a spanner in the works. There's not many of them, but it does exist. And as I mentioned before, if it goes to an odd player count, you have the Dutch, and the Dutch is trying to cause a draw between the British and the French, and they win. So you've got this player trying to pull the levers back and forth to try and even out the whole match. And it was just an absolute blast. I really loved Bristol 1350, and I think it's still my favorite of the Facade games, but Tortuga is an extremely close second. I think it's a brilliant design and so much fun. And yeah, just had a brilliant time with it. I will definitely be picking up a copy of this at some point.
I mean, this in Bristol, they really seem to pack a lot into a small box. And and I think in lots of people's collections at the moment, that's really important, because we've got these, we talked about Kickstarter before, and they're synonymous with having, bloated games and massive games. I've got a few sitting on my shelf at the moment that could definitely be a fair bit smaller, but having that, and then it's so simple, right? Like, it's effectively two teams, a bit of card play, and then whoever has the most wins. But it's that, like you said, it's the secrecy, it's the table talk that gets you going. It's the planning. It's that, I think, and I said the same thing about Bristol. It's almost like a social deduction board game, right? Like, it's a social deduction board game where the social deduction is just part of it, as opposed to it being the main part of the game. Like, I love games like One Night Ultimate Werewolf and all that type of stuff, but in the end, it is a bit more of a party activity than is a game. Whereas Bristol, Tortuga, they seem to be games that have social deduction in them.
Yeah, I agree, and because I guess with the game Tortuga in particular, because there's two ships and there's treasure ending up on both of them, it brings that game element of, well, I'll leave this ship and try and move to the other one and sort out the mess that's going on over there. And then people are like, why are you coming over here? Are you British? Are you trying to pull it away from us? And no, I'm trying to help defend that stuff. It's just, I agree, Connor. They're much more games than... They add another layer to the game rather than it just being a straight deduction game like Werewolf, for example. And I really enjoy it. The artwork's beautiful as well. Really like it. Great components. And it's pretty affordable. It's like between $30 to $40 for the game, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's a winner. That's all, and those games that we talked about before, they're all in that price range.
Yes.
The So Clovers, the Letter Gems, the Cryptos, the Just Ones. Like that's... You can see a family going, that mightn't have a big background in board gaming. It's like, well, $30, yeah, sure. Yeah. And if it's If it's not that good, then, they go, okay, like we play this maybe at Christmas time, or we play it, at a birthday party or something like that. Whereas there's people like us who would play it every weekend or like I'd hate to think how much usage Dan's version of Letter Jam has gotten. Like that would have just been absolutely flogged. So the affordability is definitely a major plus.
I totally agree.
Hey everybody, Sarah here. Just want to mention briefly for all the local Sydney folks, there is a Good Games outlet store in Hurstville. Mitch and I were invited there this week to pick up a few games, which we will definitely be talking about soon. But for those who don't know, there's some bargains to be had there. Some are dings and dents, but there's loads that are not as well. So some titles I saw there were Civilization: A New Dawn, Zombie Kids Evolution, Tammany Hall, Broom Service, stacks of RPG books, and that's just to name a handful. So go ahead, check it out. It's in Hurstville, 8 to 10 The Avenue.
All right, so that is it for me talking about Tortuga 1667. Connor, what have you been sizzling recently?
What have I been sizzling recently? Well, we have been playing as part of our rotation on Mind Melting Mondays. One of the games which I was really keen to play, and I mentioned briefly on the show, but I want to talk about it a bit more because I played it for a second time, was Clans of Caledonia.
Oh,
which Adrian,
beloved
you
of
have
death.
this game, don't you?
I do. I played it just a couple of weeks ago. It was good.
Yeah. So, well, I'll let you explain. No, I won't.
Yeah, go for
it. So in Clans, you're effectively playing as one of many clans in. Def always corrects me, but effectively it's on the the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in Scotland, and it's an economic resource management game where it's got a moving market, which I think is so good, so simple, and so clever, because the value of goods changes, right? So the value of goods. So, for example, you might sell cheese, and because you're selling cheese, there's more cheese in rotation. So cheese goes down in value. But then someone might take the opportunity to buy the cheese. So you would buy the cheese at a cheaper price and then push that price back up. So you can manipulate the market, and that is a massive part of some of the factions, because each of the factions has a game-breaking ability, which is really, really cool. But some people will be like, oh, what? I can't believe you do that. And you go, oh, actually, my ability is pretty cool as well. So I think, for example, like one of the times we played, Harry played with the faction that got heaps and heaps of, was able to sell off their extra milk. So after their production phase, he could just sell off milk to the market. So he just had an extra. And the way the market works is you need to have someone to go to the market for you, whereas he didn't. He just could sell it at the end of or after he produced. And it's got this really cool system of, so once you produce, you've got, I guess, like primary items and then secondary items. They've got a specific name, but effectively it's, so your primary items are, and correct me if I'm wrong, Adrian, so it's wheat, milk, and wool.
Mm-hmm.
And then your secondary items are bread, whiskey, and cheese.
Yep.
And then you've also got the different types of meat as well in lamb and I guess mutton and in beef. And to produce mutton or beef, you need to kill off one of your cows or sheep, which produce the wool and the milk for you. So once you've produced one of those primary items, you can then go and produce the secondary items, and the secondary items will get you more on the market defaultly. So, for example, there's one clan who is able to store whiskey in a cellar, and that whiskey can age, and they can then sell it for a greater amount on the market. No one else can do that. There's some that are better seafarers, so they start off with the ability to be able to move across the water areas a lot easier, and then they might have a benefit for colonizing on an area. Then you've got your mines and your forests. Like, it's really one of those games, like it's resource management with a bit of money thrown in. But I think the part that's really interesting is the end game scoring. So there's 3 end game scoring resources. So there's poppy, cotton. There's tobacco, and there's sugarcane.
Okay.
And there's one more too. What's the other one? So sugarcane's always worth 1 point. Hops. So cotton, hops, and tobacco. And the way that it works is and Def would clearly explain this a lot better than me, but the way that it works is at the end of the game of cotton, hops, and tobacco, the one there's the least of available is worth the most amount of points.
Oh, interesting.
And then the second one is the second. So it's like, is it 5, 4, and 3 points available?
I think so.
For example, if there's the least amount of tobacco available, that's worth 5 points. So every tobacco that you have is worth 5 points. And then if cotton is fourth, or if cotton's second, then it's worth 4 points. And then if whichever one I left out is the most readily available, that's worth 3. So there's this whole push and pull then of you going, oh, well, I do want some tobacco. Do I want more tobacco now? Because even though I might then go and grab the tobacco, that then puts the tobacco at second, which now is less valuable. So it's this whole thing of going, oh, which one do I want to get? Which one do I get? And is it better to have a spread of different of resources at the end, or is it better to sort of try and get one and stop other people from getting it? And then at least then you've got all of it. So, and then you can maybe supplement it with some of the more lucrative ones. It's just a really cool way to finish a game, and it makes sure that no game would play the same way twice, because you would never know how much of each is available, and that's all done through taking contracts and fulfilling contracts using different resources. It quite often gets compared to a Gaia project in terms of almost like just a and it's interesting because the developers are totally independent of one another, but it does share some of the same DNA, and it has been mentioned that it is it's Gaia project but farming as well. But yeah, Adrian, what do you have to say about it?
It's like Gaia Project Light and like a little bit of City of Big Shoulders with the stocks and stuff sort of amalgamated into a game.
I just love that in this hobby we can go, the farming in Clans is so much like space exploration and empire building in in Gaia. It's like, what other space can you compare those things?
Well, like if they skinned it as an outer space thing, it would basically be like, it is Gaia Project. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's
so funny.
Like, but it's a really good game. Like, and it's
fantastic.
It's another one of those ones we're talking about. Like, it's in a small little tiny tight box. It's not like this huge, big, cumbersome, crazy thing. And the component quality I actually think is really good. Like, all of the little breads,
all wooden,
and the wheats. Yeah, it's all wooden.
Nice,
it's really nice. I love the different factions and your little asymmetrical powers. I think they're really cool, and everyone has a different one, so they're all doing a sort of slightly different thing, and they're kind of leaning into that for most of the game. You also have like the little. You get to upgrade some of your not actions, but your income essentially, like throughout the game, which I think is quite cool. Kind of when you upgrade the timber and the wood thing, where you've got the timber. I can't remember what they're called. The
like the workers,
the lumberjacks, and the miners. Yeah. So you get to upgrade those in the game and place them out. Like, it's really cool. It's a really, really clever game. I thoroughly enjoy it every time I play it.
Yeah. And it's great because you can manipulate the market. And the first time I played, I was like, "What? I'm not spending money on goods. I'm making goods." But because the whole point is to fulfill these contracts, and that's the way that you get the victory points effectively. Through the victory point resources. There's no other way to get them. Like, you can't farm them as resources. The whole point is for you to then trade the contracts for those victory point resources at the end. And you can't take more than one contract at a time. However, there is a faction that can take 2 contracts at a time. So it's like that whole thing of going, you know, like you go, well, that's broken. Yeah, but that's like, I mean, I think they have one other like little advantage too, but for them, everything else is broken. You know,
Yeah.
for the fact that, you know, if there's a faction that gets to sell milk for free, okay, it's only milk, but you're still not taking an action to do it. Like,
Does it
it's
taste like real
really,
milk?
really full cream milk, yeah, another 2% fat or whatever
yeah. Another thing as well that, you know, really kind of makes it similar to Gaia Project is not only like the map, how the map gets put together is kind of somewhat similar. You have these 4 different map tiles that click together in various ways, and you can flip them over, and they have a map on the back that's slightly different. And you can click that together slightly different ways. There's little I think it's a lock, isn't it, in the middle? Yep. And there's little boats on the lock or little rocks on the map, and those, as long as those rocks are all on the same adjacent squares, hexes, then the map is correct.
Okay,
so that's kind of cool. But not even that, like, there's another thing is exactly like Gaia, is that you have the end of round scoring tiles. So at the end of the round, it's like if you have, you know, if for every whiskey you have, you get a victory point. Or
right.
For every basic good you have, you get a victory point. So that's the same, just like in Gaia. It's like if you have every federation, you get 5 victory points. It's really similar in that regard. And it's also like you have to use milk and cheese or milk to make cheese. So you kind of take the milk off and you put it back on your player board, and you put the cheese back and that kind of stuff. Well, not milk, sheep or whatever it is that you use to make the milk. I can't remember, to be honest. I think it is
sheep
milk.
to make the milk.
Well, you can milk. You can milk
and the wool to make the whiskey.
I can't remember exactly how it works, but yeah, you swap the resources. They go back on your player board, and then they go back on the map. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different things that's like that. But the only thing that I find that is a little bit kind of different that Gaia doesn't have as much is the little port bonus tiles. I think that's very cool. Different and very cool. So you have like these one-time bonuses if you can get to the outer edges of the map and develop and get people out to there. You have like these one-time bonuses to use, and some of them are really powerful. And like if you use them at the right time, you can really change a game. I played the first time I played it, I won, and it was solely because I got one of those bonus tiles at the right time, and I lowered the price, I think, of cheese. I bought a ton of it, and then it really swung the game for me to fulfill a really big contract. But it's a really, really nice game. I think it's really visually nice as well on the table. Like, I like the parts. It's
got a pleasant look, and I think anything like wooden components, they just have a certain feel to them. And, you know, it just feels like it's like plastic can sometimes feel a bit cheap.
Yep.
Whereas like wood, you're like, this has been crafted from something, like it's
from a tree.
Thanks. As a former environmental scientist,
it's okay.
We both know that wood comes from trees.
I was going to say something worse. I was going to say they're solid, but plastic's also solid. So do you know what I mean? Like, there's something about them.
Wood in liquid form.
Yeah, not a gas. But like, there's also the shipping tokens thing with the shipping track, which is kind of cool. So there's like a little upgraded. You can upgrade this your ability to get across the water. So you have to do that as an action. You have to upgrade, and then you're able to sort of build away from where you are into separate areas. And that's quite important.
That's like
because you need to,
because you know, like
part of the scoring conditions at the end is how many separate, not clans, but how many separate dwellings you have, isn't it, Connor? From memory, it's like how many buildings you have in separate dwellings or something that you.
It's like I'll probably get this wrong, but it's the number of separate buildings in separate groups that aren't connected to one another.
Yeah,
that's like how you score. So it's not complicated. Once you see it on the board, it makes total sense. But when you're trying to explain it a bit abstractly, like I am right now, it probably doesn't make sense. But and that's another another way to win victory points as well, to just put you over the top. And that's a way that I'd imagine like 3 or 4 really good players of it, that's how they would separate each other.
Okay.
But for people who are different experience levels, the fact that you can just say focus on one type of victory point as well, and just go for that and make sure that might stay low. That's all really important. as well. But like, there's cool things where if you fulfill a contract, you'll get a free upgrade, or you will get something for free, or you'll get more money, which will let you build on that next turn that you wouldn't have been able to do before. So it has those cool combos in it that we like from other games as well, where it's like, I fulfilled that. That's going to let me then go and have a really cool next turn. And you do have really fulfilling turns. And it's really great too, like through production, like, oh my God, I've got so much stuff. I have lots of options now. Whereas I feel like with Gaia Project, sometimes it's a bit like, I'm surviving from turn to turn, and I've really got to be like, oh man, what's the next step? And you kind of, in a good way, you're stressed and your brain's working into overdrive. Whereas this one, it's a bit like, no, it's okay. I've got flexibility. What's that? I've got some money. Okay, I can just go to the market and buy something. Or someone else has gone and bought or sold something, and it's dropped the price for you. Like, oh, even better. I don't have to spend as much. Like, it has that really cool interaction.
I have once as well played, like, I will call it the boring mode without the clans, where you just play like without the asymmetrical powers. I know you'd hate that, Connor, because you love asymmetrical stuff.
Terrible.
But it's really interesting because there is no game breaking rules, so it is like it feels way more pressure. Like, I feel that, like, right, what am I doing? Because if I have my asymmetrical power, all I'm going to do is lean into that, and I've got my path. Whereas this, it's like, right, what can I do? What am I doing to try and make this game good for my strategy?
Yeah, for sure.
I lost terribly, but it was still really good.
But now, like, I can see, like, I would do that too, because like there's just, I've got no clear path. I've got, what's the optimal strategy? And I think then it turns into like a pure Euro of, well, there's going to be one optimal strategy. What's the optimal strategy? Is it just to make heaps of wheat so you can make heaps of whiskey and then sell that whiskey? Like, I don't know. Like, that's, I guess that's.
But the game changes so much because the stock prices change, so it can really vary on what everyone else does. Yeah. So it's a fantastic game. It's really good. I would never see it leaving, because it is a little bit easier, I think, than Gaia Project, even though it has it has the stocks and the shares and some other things you have to look for. I just think Gaia is just that much more involved and in depth that it's just harder to master. So
I definitely feel like I've gone 10 rounds with Mike Tyson after a game of Gaia Project. Like, that's oh my God, like, as much as I love it, it's like, oh, what am I going to do now? Just scoop my brains off the ground.
Yeah, there was a lot of groaning when we played that. I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do?
Yeah, or something. You just make one stupid mistake and it's just like, oh, that's it.
But you had these moments where you're like, oh no, I'm one short. Wait.
Oh,
I've got it.
Yeah. And and I talk about this quite a bit, and I think, Adrian, we've talked about it a fair bit as well, but that whole thing of, I'm just glad I get to have a cool turn.
Yeah.
That exists in both of those games.
Okay.
That turn was really cool. Yeah, I don't even care if I win. Like, you want to be competitive, but you just have a really cool turn. You're like, yes. You're sort of doing like arm pumps, going, yes.
Yeah.
Clans of Caledonia, give it a go if you're interested in any of those, Euro games or a little bit of economic games. I wouldn't say it's super economic.
No, it's not. It's quite simple to follow and to do, and it's a great game. There's one thing as well that I found quite interesting, isn't it? Don't you have to pay to fulfill contracts in the first year?
No,
take a contract. To take contracts in the first year, I think you get $5. But I think by the end of the game, you have to pay like $10 or $15 to complete a contract or to take a contract.
So it's really interesting.
It gets quite tight at the end.
By that time, that's when you're producing all your goods. So you're like, oh crap! Like,
I've got no money.
But then you're probably looking for contracts that will give you like money, so that you can go and get more contracts, or you might be forced to go to the market to go and sell to how to go take a contract. I found that was a good way to lower the curve. Not so much, it didn't hamper me to the point where I couldn't take contracts anymore, but it just made you think and added the extra layer of, I've got to find the money somewhere.
Right.
But because you've got resources lying around, and it's not like a massive cost, it's just
Yeah.
enough for you to be like, oh, hang on, I can't do it just yet. I've got to take one more turn.
Yeah.
But that one more turn may cause someone to leapfrog you and go and get that contract that you wanted. So yeah, no, good. Thanks for pointing that out, Adrian. That's a really good point, which I had.
Because then you can
forgotten.
you can then sell. You would sell some other resources you don't care much for to the market, and then that would then lower the price for someone else to come in and then buy more of that from the market because you've sold to the market, so it's dropped down. It's really clever. The little market things is really, really
It's
good.
a little chalkboard too.
Yeah,
So like you can
really
imagine
cool.
being at a market and they go, oh, the price for today, geez, has it gone down? And then you'd have someone announcing it. Yeah, no, it is. It's really, really good. Really, really fun.
Oh, I'm keen to try it sometime. After learning Gaia Project from Def, it was really enjoyable, and I'm sure that I'd really like Clans of Caledonia as well. Very good. Well, with that, I think we'll move on to our next segment, which is the bracket battle.
Buying games is a serious thing, and if you're serious about games, then you'll check out 2D6 Games. Dan, Dave and Joe will go above and beyond to make sure your gaming needs are all sorted. They have a great range, and they also provide free shipping Australia-wide. They do loads of work within the gaming community. They help us out immensely with our Brisbane Game Days, and they've even helped us pull off some great pranks against other podcast members. Head over to 2d6games.com.au and check them out today.
Okay, so resolving last week's bracket battle, we had 2 worker placement games that are very beloved in the hobby. That is Architects of the West Kingdom and Everdell. I thought this was going to be a tight matchup. Well, what do you guys think? How do you think this all shaped out?
This is like asking which kidney I want to keep, my left or my right kidney. It's really hard. I mean, I quite often talked about how Everdell was sort of a good gateway game, but I think Architects is probably a better gateway game, and it's not as tight. I think Architects probably got the win.
I think Architects is a better game to teach people as a first game because it's all iconography. It's not as much like text and stuff. And I me personally, like with my dyslexia and stuff, I find it easier to be like, okay, the red thing means I get it. The black text, the black icon means I don't get it. Like, it's easy, it's simple. Okay, cool. Every time I see the red one, that's right. Whereas the Everdell cards, you've got to read it, and it's you've got to remember it all, and you've got to check the cards and what cards combo with what. And I think Architects is a better gateway game. But man, Everdell, like the people love that game, and it's like we just had a Kickstarter for a big box game version and a couple of expansions, and I think it made like $9 million US or something. Like it's
wow.
Do you know what I mean? Like it did crazy. It might have been 9 million Australian, so it was like $4 US. But like, do you know what I mean? Like it's like it's got a massive following. People love that game. They love it.
It makes sense, right? Like,
it's got all
animals
the good stuff
in a town. Like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the game Animal Crossing, but it's pretty much Animal Crossing, the board game.
It's Sylvanian Families, the board game.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's. I mean, that makes sense. But anyway, Jules, put me out of my misery. Which one of my kidneys moves on?
All right. Well, the kidney that has buildings and virtue, which is Architects, will move on to the next round, just squeaking out the win over Everdell's 119 to 100. So not much in it. And I'll say that the voting over Instagram and Facebook were very neck and neck, but it was our Discord that threw out the balance. So if you aren't on the Discord yet and didn't throw in your Everdell vote there, that's where you need to be for the next battle. So with that, we'll move on to 2 games that are very similar to each other because they both involve water, and that is Barrage and Raiders of the North Sea.
Oh, I thought you were going to say like Aquatica and
Go on, think
Whistle
of a
Mountain.
war game.
Whistle Mountain.
You're on the spot.
I did.
Whistle Mountain's a
Whistle
stretch.
What do you mean? You got to drown the people.
Know, it's not underwater. True.
Oh dear. Anyway, we're not talking about those games.
But they're both worker placement.
Yes.
They're both one's a higher, one's an entry level, easier gateway kind of a entry-level game for worker placement, and the other one's on the other end of the spectrum, like heavy as. But they're both fantastic. They're both loved games. I played Raiders. I actually have played Raiders more recently than I played Barrage as well. How about that?
Wow.
I played
Was
Raiders
that like
just
a
the other
day
day.
apart?
I think you just made that up.
No, it's true. It's really true. Ask MJ. But going back and playing Raiders, like me, I really appreciated it as a game, and I'm actually really looking forward to not too far away playing it with Finn and showing him that, because we've played Sentry, A New World, and that's worker placement, and it's kind of similar. You need the right amount of workers to place in a spot, whereas this, you need the right colors of workers and the right amount to get into different spots. But yeah, I think Raiders is a great game still. And I know people say Raiders of Scythia is better, but why? Like, is it because it just incorporates the expansions into the sort of base game? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's pretty much all of the stuff that you like about all the expansions together, and then kind of blended more seamlessly.
Okay.
But I mean, it's the same concept, right? Like, you've got the one worker, and you place a worker and pick up a worker. Like, I think that's craziness, right? You go, what, one worker? It's worker placement. It's one. What? How? What? But because you're always just going to have the one worker, it just makes sense. It's about cycling through them, and yeah, like for me, I've only played Barrage once, twice, maybe, and I think I can't remember if I played it the first time we ever played it with you, Adrian, like when we first learned it together. And then you were like, I love this game. I cannot believe how much I love this game. And I was like, okay, like it's all right, I guess. But on like after like playing it a second time, going, yeah, okay, I can see why you like it so much. For me, it's probably. I probably have to. I know Mitch has said the same thing. Like, it is really tight,
super tight.
And I think if you're just not in the mood to have that kind of mind crunch, and because it is tight, like, people can suffer big time from
100%.
Oh yeah,
which is fine. Like, that's not. I just say that in terms of people who that might bother.
Yeah.
For me, I like when people will take time on their turns, because it means I've got more time to work out my turn.
Yes.
And as long as they don't do one thing or go to do one thing, and I'm like, yes, that's going to work for me. And then they'd go, oh no, take you back, says I don't want to do that anymore. And they do something else.
Yeah, and it's the thing you wanted to do.
Go back. You had to do the first one.
Yeah.
Like, I think, I mean, it's actually a really hard one for me, because I think they're both really good, but I don't necessarily care about either of them all that much. But I know that they're both really, really good games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've played both of them as well, and I appreciate both of them for what they are. Like Barrage, like you said, Connor, is that tight, brain-crunching game. And
it's not even just the tightness I thought you'd like, Jules. It is cutthroat as. It's horrible.
And
you can be so harsh on it.
I love the mechanism as well of the resources being, stored up in that wheel, and you got to figure out a way to push them along. It's very clever. And then the simplicity of Raiders, of you've got one worker, but you have to plan multiple turns ahead of getting the right colored worker to go to the spot that you want, and trying to build up enough resources to combo into the different raids before other people get to them. It's very clever in its own right. And I jokingly said they're similar games, but they are very different.
Yeah.
If you haven't picked that up already. But I can see why people love both, and I'm very interested to see how this one goes. Very, very interested.
Well, Shem's had 2 games in a row now.
Yes.
Like
it's a bit of a juggernaut.
So with Architects and now with Raiders. So
I'll have to say as well, like, you kind of we play a lot of games. So I think most of our listeners also, they play a lot of games. Like, I find that I'm always looking for like the next best game. Do you know what I mean? Like, always,
I know what you
we're
mean.
playing games and we're playing them to enjoy them, but you always want to have something that just blows you out of the water.
Yes.
You go, wow, that is so good. That's already in my top 10 somewhere. This is amazing. This has just knocked everything out of the park. And I have to say that every time I play Barrage, it solidifies itself as being my number one.
Mhm.
Yeah, right.
And I find that when we played the 5-player game, I was like, this is going to go one way or the other, and I had it made it better than I ever played it before.
Yeah.
So it just locked it in its spot for in that space. When not that I was doubting where it was going to go, it's still my number one. But for me, I was like, wow, this is so good that I can't see it going anywhere else. So yeah, I love it.
Very good. Any final words?
Oh man, I think that they both have a bit of a different audience, but I think they're both very solid games, and I think we'll see where everyone votes and where their allegiances lie. So
Whichever one's going to give Root the easiest path to the final, vote for that one.
Oh dear. Well, it's not up to us, as we continually say. It's up to you, the community, to vote. So you can find the post on our Facebook community, on Instagram, and in Discord in the Bracket Battle channel. So cast your votes as you wish and where you wish, and we'll see which one comes out on top. All right, so before we dive into our oaths, we just wanted to do a big shout out to the community and all the support that you guys give us. We really, really appreciate that. If you are not sure on how you can support us, we do have a Patreon, so you can always go to patreon.com/boardgamebarbecue and sign up to donate there to get exclusive access to a load of podcast content. And we're always adding more stuff to that backlog. So there's days and days of content to consume there if you don't have already enough on the main podcast. But if you don't want to do that, you can leave a review on Apple Podcast or the star rating system on Spotify. We really appreciate that. Helps with the algorithm nonsense sometimes. And also just get involved in the Board Game Barbecue community on Facebook, or you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube, and also the Discord community where we talk about loads of stuff all the time and play games with each other online as well. So thank you to everyone, especially to our patrons, for supporting the show.
And another great way to support us and get included in the community is to come to our game days. We have the Sydney game day coming up at the Castle Hill RSL. Man, are you guys... Jules, are you coming? Who's going to this one? I
would love to come along.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's definitely... I think it's the best thing that we have in the community, right? Getting to get involved and actually play games together.
Sure.
Like, it's always nice to meet some of the people and play games, and like some of the stories that come out, like Skinny and the lightsaber, like that's kind of what goes on at these game days. So.
Or Mitch and his giant chicken sandwich.
Yeah, so I was going to say, if you're unconvinced about coming to the game day, the chicken burger is back, people.
Yeah, it's back with a vengeance.
Yeah, RSL chicken burger's back.
But that game day is actually on the 18th of June at the Castle Hill RSL, starting at 11 in the morning, going till like crazy late. But yeah, I mean, they're fantastic days. We all have a blast. We get to play like crazy games we've never played before. I'm still hanging out every time at the moment. I approach someone and say, I have to play that Bristol 1350 that Jules keeps talking about, and you just get caught up in the day, and it doesn't happen. But I know it will happen one day at those game days. So yeah, that's my plan. So
all right, down to the business. Adrian, you're at the top of my list here. How did you go with your oath?
Mate, my oath was to play Yak. Actually.
Okay.
Learn it, play it with Finn, and we actually played it with Finn and MJ, and it was really good. Like, I really enjoyed it. I think Finn actually, he struggled at the start.
Yep.
But when we started the things moving and getting used to it, it was fine. And he beat my score. So that says...
Oh, he did more than fine.
Says then what happened. Yeah, and it's a really interesting game. Like, I won't go into it too much because we only played it the once because we were really busy with getting prepped for game day stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it has some really interesting stuff in it, and it's definitely a family game. Like, this is a great game for a family, or parents and children and stuff, and maybe grandparents.
Yep.
It's not like some crazy, super heavy game, but was really enjoyable, and I have to say the component quality is phenomenal. Like, I don't know how much this actually is at like in retail, not in a sale, but it it blew me away at the component quality. Like, they have probably one of the best inserts I've seen in a retail game.
Oh wow!
And I was like, how, like, you know, when you get in games and nothing quite fits in some of these inserts, and you're like, this doesn't right, and that doesn't. These things that you have, these yaks that are pulling a plastic cart with wheels on it that you build and click together, and you put the little horns onto the yaks and stuff, and you click it all together. Then these actually, once they're all built, you just slide them into these little slots, and they all slide in perfectly like a little stable.
Oh
and
wow!
It looks really impressive when they're all in there. I was really impressed with that. And you get these big, huge, chunky blocks because you're actually building a temple type thing, and you have to connect different colors and things together to try and get like multipliers and different sets of things get you different points. But even the quality of just the wooden bricks is really high. Like, they're really well painted. They're really shiny and they're chunky as.
Is it a eucalypt or is it pine?
Dude, I have no idea. It's painted wood.
It's that gas wood that
yeah.
talking about.
But it's got like a dual layer player board as well, like dual layer player board. So you slot the bricks in a row of 5. And then that they're slotted in and locked into the player board. Then you actually do 4, 3, 2, then 1. Do you know what I mean? To build your little building. But like, yeah, they're actually, because they're on the player board and it's dual layered, and the first layer, the base layer, locks into place. You know, they're not sliding around or getting knocked or anything. And
right,
it's just an extra layer to make it nicer.
Cool.
But yeah, the actual game itself was really interesting. You know, there's different mechanics, somewhat. You know, there's some luck involved and stuff, and some bad luck as well, which is really cool. Some of the bricks in there are actually like a wind token that creates like a wind channel, and it turns the yaks around, so they actually rotate a different way around the table. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was family fun.
Nice.
Definitely. So, yeah.
So what's next?
Next is, I was lucky enough to have my group pledge game that arrived at the game day. Stacey dropped it off. Well, Shannon's dropped it off for us. Of Carnegie. And
you've been looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I mean, I've played it a bit online a couple of times, and I've played it a little bit at the game day. We just didn't have enough time to finish the game at the game day. But yeah, I'm just looking forward to playing it and playing my copy. So me and MJ are gonna play. I'm gonna teach it on the weekend. So
very good,
Carnegie.
You know, Mitch cheats at that game.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I heard that.
Alrighty. I might just jump in here quickly and pull the old "I wasn't supposed to be on this podcast" card.
That old chestnut.
Oh, yeah.
So my oath was to play Age of Steam. So I was supposed to have a couple of weeks to do it, but I've jumped in to save people at the last minute. But do I double down? I don't know.
Double down. Double down. Double down. Double.
Well, I don't know if you're the person that should be chanting this, Connor, because I may have helped you with your oath.
I don't even know if that counts as me fulfilling my oath.
Probably not. But I'm gonna chuck something on here anyway, because I'm very keen to play it. So in the past month, I picked up a game that was a Kickstarter many years ago, and it's not really had much coverage on it. There's a few YouTube videos out there, but they're not well watched. And this is, in my opinion, it's really a head-to-head game, but you can buy expansions to increase it. And it's a card-playing game called Ortus Regni.
Right.
And essentially, what you're doing is you're representing playing as someone who owns a kingdom, and you have a deck of cards that there's a whole selection of cards, and you construct a deck before you start playing. So similar to Magic the Gathering, you pick what combinations of cards you have before you start, and you go to head to head against another player, and you're trying to either knock out all of their castles that you construct, or outlast them. So if you cannot draw any more cards, essentially you've died of old age, and you have no one to hand over your kingdom to. So there's mechanics to get your discard back into your deck so you can keep going. I haven't played it yet. I've watched a bunch of I watched a couple of gameplay videos, but as I said, there's not many out there, and I've watched it a few times to try and understand it. But one of the things that really, look, this is a thing that could be, people go, I hate that, or that is really interesting, is the fact that this is a card game, and all
no
of the
cards.
No, no, not quite. But all the cards have different abilities, right? But the cards are 100% pure artwork. There is no text on them.
Oh, okay.
So
how's that work?
So there you have a cloth or a hanky player aid that tells you what the cards do, but the card itself is just a pure piece of artwork. So you're laying out these cards that are just 100% artwork. There is no text whatsoever on it. And it looks really cool on the table of having these artworks of like people with farmlands and castles all sort of grouped in specific ways on how you play the game. But the fact that you just have to learn what the card does based off remembering the artwork is something really quite different. Now, the game's not overloaded with a million cards. I think there's probably about 15 cards in the whole game, because you get to play with multiples of them when you build your deck. But it's something really different. I'm really looking forward to playing it, and I need to find someone that is, I guess, willing to do a 2-player head-to-head game and put in a little bit of brain power to learning the game, because it has no text on the cards as to direct you what happens when you play this card. So that's what I'm going to swear to do. Yeah,
get Joe to play it.
It sounds like
I would love to play it with
Joe.
Joe
Would whoop you, mate. I'll put my money on Joe. I met Joe this weekend. I've met him before, but he came to the Brisbane Game Day. He's such a legend.
He is a legend.
I put my $5 bet right now that Joe's going to whoop you at that game.
Yeah. You mean your $5 like zinger voucher?
Theoretical dollars.
All right. Well, so I, Jules Watson, swear that I'm going to play Age of Steam and Ortus Regni by the time I'm on the next podcast.
Right. So, as Jules alluded to, I my last oath, it was doomed to fail, right? Like, especially number one, because it was me, and number two, it like had a finite time. I had to do it. So I said that I was going to play Fort with Harry, and Harry came to the Melbourne Game Day. Unfortunately, I didn't have the time to do it, and then Harry, as you should at our game days, was flat out busy playing a whole bunch of different games, and so I wasn't able to play it with him. However, Jules came to the rescue, because the next day Jules and Harry hung out with a group of other people as well, and Jules actually played Fort with Harry.
Yes.
So what we'll do, right? I'm not saying I've fulfilled the oath, but we'll put it on the back burner, because there's actually, I want to play it with Harry in person. Like, that was the whole idea of the oath. So the next time I see Harry, it might not be at a game day. It could be if I go up and visit Sydney. I don't know who else I'd visit in Sydney. Like, why would I go there and visit other people? Like, there's no one else I'd want to visit in Sydney. Mitch, Sarah. But so we'll just say, like, all right, like, that's not done. I still have to do it, but there's no point us belaboring the point. But on Friday, 2 new heroes came out for Marvel Champions.
Oh,
so one of them was Nova, Adrian, who we talked about.
Yeah.
But it's Sam, not Richard Ryder.
Yeah.
It's Sam. I think it's Sam Alexander.
It's actually quite kind of the times, because I think they just announced today they're making a Nova movie.
What did they?
Yeah.
That's it. I need to find out more. And the other one is Ironheart, who, in the current Marvel sort of mythos, in the comic books, she has kind of taken over the role of Iron Man. She's like a child genius who came up with her own suit and stuff like that. And Tony's kind of like her. It's a bit like how in the movies with Peter Parker and Tony Stark, like that relationship between them. So, but obviously in the comics it's a bit different. So they both seem really cool. Like Ironheart's got this like leveling up mechanic, so she can level up her suit as she goes along. Like that's an inbuilt mechanic for her. And then Nova, he's like super energy based, so anytime you use a wild resource, he gets to have a bonus, or sometimes he gets to reactivate, or sometimes he'll just deal extra damage to other people, and that's really cool. He's got his helmet, which is where the world mind is attached to, and he can and the Nova Force and stuff like that. So yeah, they're really cool. So I'm just going to use them in probably just like a one-shot match against someone. So I kind of mind swear the next time I'm on the show that I will have played as Nova or Ironheart in Marvel Champions.
Very
Just
good.
a quick one on that note. I actually fulfilled another ancient oath from a long time ago.
Oh, yes.
I did.
How did we forget?
How do we forget? Like, it was so bad. God, I mean, you were like the worst out of everybody. I'm dragging you down to my level, dude. But I saw an oath to play Aeon's End with Connor at the Sydney Game Day. If memory serves me correct, I don't think you attended that game day in the end. Or did you? I can't remember.
No, I went to that one.
We played Merchants of the Dark Road, and that's what happened.
Yeah,
we ended up playing Merchants of the Dark Road at like 2 a.m. Sorry, my memory's so bad. No wonder I forget these O's, right? But I swore to play Aeon's End with Connor at the game day, and it just didn't happen. And I said if I didn't get it done, I would play it online with him. And that's what happened. We played Aeon's End online.
Hey, nice.
On TTS. So
we got absolutely hosed.
Oh, yeah, we got hosed bad. It was so bad.
It was fun. I can see why people will enjoy it so much. And I did. So I actually bought Joe's copy with a reset pack off him because he was finished with Legacy. With Legacy, the first Legacy, not the new one that's come out. That I know yourself, Sarah, Dan, and Mitch are all over, so I'm going to give it actually to my mum. So she's got a game that she can play by herself or play with me, just me and her. So that'd be kind of cool.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Well, there's we had a bit of success, a bit of failure. That's par for the course and normal around here, but all round, good podcast. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jules.
Mate, thank you.
And
always a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. We hope that your next game is a Citizen one. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Who's actually hosting? I don't know.
You are.
It's supposed to be you.
It's me.
Yeah,
okay.
Kermit the Frog and Michael Jackson's love child. Mitch is at work, he's just eating twisties, peanut butter balls or bacon bullets,
Bacon bullets. This is taking 2 hours.
Jules is the host. It's his fault.